So the person I'll be discussing in this video, as you know by the title, is someone known in the community as Leany or Lean Dragon. A lot of you that are invested in the community in some way or another probably know him, or at least have heard his name, but what I'm about to discuss here is something that mostly people that are only in private servers know about. I've been holding off on making my story with him public for a while, but with it being recently brought to my attention that he still, to this day, talks about me in other private servers behind my back, I see no reason to hold back on my side of the story anymore. I'll do my best to avoid talking about my personal feelings with this, as this video isn't meant to create sympathy for me, but to simply show the actions he's taken towards me and others. So there's just one smaller thing that I'll need to bring up before getting to the biggest thing that happened. This happened around July of 2020, when Lean, in the middle of a discussion that was just starting to get heated, started going off on other people that were just trying to calm everything down, one of them being me. While I did say some things that probably bothered him, including just straight up saying shut up to him, I was acting in decent faith and trying to get the chat back to normal. However, his response to me was far from decent faith. To this day, I'm not exactly sure why he brings up my boyfriend, Corrupted Husky, in this way. There's probably some previous fallout that happened between him and Husky, but it's not one I've bothered asking either of them about. Anyways, this is sort of the first sign that he had something against me and him. We somewhat made up shortly afterwards, and about 5 months pass, with a couple other small arguments and discussions that get made up quickly and aren't really important to this video. However, what he does next around January of this year is something that I can only describe as unforgivable. Now, to give context for this part, let me discuss me and Husky's relationship dynamic. Husky revealed his feelings for me on my 17th birthday. It was January 1st, 2020. Husky was 14, having turned that age on September 9th. I was with Not King Helix at the time, but after some discussions and realizations on everyone's end, Helix decided to split off and let us have a chance together. For as long as we've been together, we haven't done anything sexual, no nudes or anything. Our age gap wasn't really bad, but the idea of it still made us uncomfortable, so we avoided doing anything sexual, agreeing to only do any of that when both of us were of age. Now, I can understand others being uncomfortable with this age gap. That's totally fine, people have their preferences, but we were working within legal limits on both of our ends. So with all that being said, and with all this being known information to all of our friends, why only a month after I turn 18 does Lean decide to say this? What he's saying here is at best a misconception based on limited knowledge of our relationship and the laws within our states, and at worst a blatant and intentional lie to make me look like a creep. I don't know where on that spectrum it lies, but either way, falsely accusing someone of pedophilia with no tangible evidence is not a good look. So, shortly after this all happened, I messaged Lean to try and reason with him, but all I got was more hostility. To give this a bit of a backstory, Lean used to be in the bakery, and eventually after enough things happened as he was lashing out, he got banned. There was some discussion on whether he'd be allowed back in, but me, Husky, and a few others had said they'd be uncomfortable with him coming back. Lean somehow took this as specifically me and Husky being the only reason he's not allowed to, and then said I was slandering and blackmailing. Okay, let's back up a sec here. So, Google defines slander as the action or crime of making a false spoken statement damaging to a person's reputation. The closest thing I've done to that is calling his actions toward me and Husky mental and verbal abuse, which is pretty subjective, but from my experience I've been screwed enough mentally by what he said and done for me to call it that. Now let's take a look back at what he said less than a day earlier. False spoken statement, damaging to a person's reputation. Yep, that's slander. Anyways, after this, Lean and I blocked each other, and I was hoping that that was the end of it. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I was recently informed that he's still to this day attempting to convince people that I'm some sort of creep. I want to mention again that if you personally are uncomfortable with the age gap me and Husky have, that is totally fine. In fact, good on you for having your concerns, because this is definitely a gray area morally and can easily make for some dangerous scenarios for the younger person. I'm not trying to say that you should be comfortable with it. However, when people try and accuse me of something that is objectively untrue for months on end, that's where I start having problems. Whether you want to believe it or not, I'm not a pedophile, and my relationship with Husky is no grounds to accuse me of being one. Thanks for watching.